السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله وحده، والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده ولا أمة بعد أمته ولا كتاب بعد كتابه ولا شريعة بعد شريعته. أما بعد، فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الرسل كلوا من الطيبات واعملوا صالحا. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: طلب الحلال فريضة بعد الفريضة، وكما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Respected elders and brothers, we have the topic, the halal way, and inshallah I will keep it very brief. Inshallah I will even try to finish it within the time, and if there is any questions we could even look at that in the limited time that we have. In this regard, I read an ayat of the Holy Quran in front of you, which is in Surah Mu'minun, in the 18th juz of the Holy Quran, and a hadith of our beloved Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which I will make the basis of the presentation. Before I start the presentation, very briefly, when Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, our forefather, the father of all humanity, was in Jannah, in paradise, Allah Ta'ala says in the 16th Surah of the Holy Quran, Ya Adam, inna hadha aduwwun laka wa li zawjik fala yukhrijannakuma min al-jannati fatashqa. O Adam, Shaitan and Iblis is your enemy. See to it that he does not expel you or seek to remove you from Jannah. Because in Jannah, inna laka alla taju'a fiha wa la ta'ra. In Jannah, hunger will not overtake you. You will never be naked. وَأَنَّكَ لَا تَزْمَعُ فِيهَا وَلَا تَضْحَى. You would not be thirsty and you would not be without shelter. So all your basic needs have been taken care of by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever happened, transpired with Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, and Adam alayhi salatu wasalam came into the earth. When he came into the earth, and when he came into the earth, now those aspects that were in Jannah, were his food, his clothing, his shelter, and his drinks, and not being thirsty, was taken care of by Allah. Here in dunya it was no more such. Now he had to strive for his needs. So in Jannah, all his needs were taken care of, as Allah says in the 16th Surah of the Holy Quran. When he came here, his needs were now, he had to strive for it. And his food, his clothing, his shelter, he had to make and had to strive and make an effort. In Ma'arif al-Quran, the tafsir of the Holy Quran, Mufti Shafiq rahmatullahi alayhi mentioned a very interesting incident, that Adam alayhi salatu wasalam prepared a meal in the beginning stages of his existence in this world. And when he prepared the meal, in fact we will find that the initial revelation that came upon Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, because at that time it was the dawn of humanity, and Adam alayhi salatu wasalam was alone, and that time he needed to know how to live, how to light a fire, how to cook food, how to be able to meet his needs. So many of the revelations that came upon Adam alayhi salatu wasalam were with regard to the basic essentials and needs of humankind, how to light a fire, how to cook, etc. So Adam alayhi salatu wasalam prepared a meal, and he was sitting on the foot of a mountain when the meal that he had prepared fell down. And Adam alayhi salatu wasalam had to go down and go and fetch that particular food which he had prepared with great amount of effort. And Allah reminded him, "Oh Adam, in Jannah all of these things were met. Now in dunya you have to strive." And today that is how we have to strive. We have to strive for all our needs. But the only difference, and this is one of the very great aspects of Islam, is the striving to meet your needs in other cultures has been regarded to be part of human life, to be able to accumulate your wealth and to be able to accumulate your needs and to get a job. It is regarded to be part of human nature and human needs. In Islam, the one difference is it has been given a religious benefit. It has been made a religious obligation. Now look at this hadith which I recited in the beginning, when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "Talabul halali faridatun ba'da al-farida." if you can remember and make a note, if you are making notes, I will tell you 3 important points in this hadith which will cover my entire presentation. One is, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, the acquiring of halal rizq is a religious obligation. Just like salat, zakat, saum is a religious obligation, for you to look and for you to earn a halal rizq is a religious obligation like salat, zakat, etc. Now one great lesson we learn from here is that in Islam there is no dichotomy between the spiritual and the mundane. There is no dichotomy between the world and the hereafter. For us, the entirety of our life is deen. The entirety of our life is controlled by the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, akhirat is akhirat, ibadat is ibadat. Right? We know that, to strive for the akhirat, everyone regards it to be a virtue and regards it to be worship. And for you to perform salat, everyone regards it to be an ibadat. What many people don't realize is that as far as Islam is concerned, even your worldly obligation with 2 conditions. One condition, it is done according to the commands of Allah. One is your intention is correct, that also becomes deen, that also becomes a religious obligation. So there is no dichotomy between the deen and dunya in Islam. Our deen is deen, our dunya also becomes deen, and one of the great disasters of human society has been that we have separated the two. Now when we have separated the two, what has happened? When we separate dunya from deen, and you only make deen into what you do in the masjid, then the world outside becomes devoid of morality and ethics. The way we are seeing today, politics, trade, business is devoid of morality and ethics because there is no deen there. Right? So that is one of the disasters. On the other hand, the other type of disaster is this, that one is you have devoid the deen, the dunya from morality, and the other is if you confine your ibadat only to the masjid, then a very large chunk of your life is devoid of Allah Ta'ala's commands. Islam has taken away from those 2 extremes and said, no, deen is deen, Allah's command is there, but even your worldly obligation is part of deen. And this is, so the one aspect is, the point is, there is no dichotomy. So our deen includes aspects of morality, character, conduct, our salat, our devotion, our remembrance of Almighty Allah, our tilawat, and also our business. Right? So the first aspect, talabul halali faridatun. The acquiring of halal rizq is a religious obligation. Right? That's one. The second point that I would like to say in this is, if, for example, we could have said that Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam could have said, Talabul mali faridatun. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam could have said, the acquiring of wealth is a religious obligation. He didn't say so. He said the acquiring of halal is a religious obligation. Subhanallah. So not every acquisition of wealth is necessarily halal. Not every business endeavor and enterprise is necessarily correct. Not every means of income is Sharia compliant. Not every aspect of wealth that you have got is sanctioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam didn't say talabul mali. If it was just acquiring of wealth, then he would have said the acquiring of wealth is a religious obligation. He didn't say that. He said talabul halali faridatun. The acquiring of halal is a religious obligation. Now who is going to decide and determine what is halal? Surely not you and I, because we are the people who are on the ground. We are the people, and as we say, you cannot be a referee and a player at the same time. You cannot be a person who is a player and be the referee. So we can't be players and also be the referee. So who is going to determine what is halal? Obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now in that, what is halal is not going to be left to your desire. It is not going to be left to what you feel is here's a good business opportunity, let me take it. Irrespective if it is interest-based, irrespective if it means doing someone down, irrespective if it means that is not according to the commands of Allah, irrespective if it means, selling alcohol, selling that which is haram, not permissible. So who is going to determine that? Allah, talabul halal. not talabul mal. Talabul halali faridatun. Now in the acquiring of halal, there are many aspects with regard to acquiring of halal. They can be the aspect of business. They can be the aspect of halal employment. There could be various aspects. There is no doubt whatsoever that the most virtuous and the most profitable way with regard to halal risk is undoubtedly business and trade. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had said, "Ma akala ahadun ta'aman qattun khayrun min an ya'kulu min amal biyadihi." There is no one who eats a better risk and sustenance than that which he does by his own effort and endeavor. Right? And with regard to trade, let me make mention that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had said, 90% of risk and sustenance Allah has kept in trade. 90% of risk Allah has kept in trade. Allah Ta'ala in the Holy Quran in Surah Muzammil, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions those who travel for trade side by side with those who travel in the path of Allah. And look at Surah Muzammil. Really, that last ayat of the Surah Muzammil is so beautiful. You know, وَآخَرُونَ يَضْرِبُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ يَبْتَغُونَ مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَآخَرُونَ يُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. There are those who travel for the sake of risk. And in the very same ayat, in the very next line, وَآخَرُونَ يُقَاتِلُونَ فِي, and those who travel in the path of Allah. Allah mentions those who travel for trade together with those who travel in the path of Allah. Subhanallah. Now of course those who go for trade, meaning proper trade, not go to, China, etc. and go and do all lot of unda danda there, go and do all lot of wrong things there. وَآخَرُونَ يَضْرِبُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَآخَرُونَ يُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Right? Allah Ta'ala has kept trade. And the longest ayat in the Holy Quran, is not about namaz, roza, zakat, it is about trade. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha tadayantum any hafiz, one of the most difficult ayats that he wants that he must not read in Taraweeh is this ayat, 1.25 pages. Only to do with trade. Oh, you who give a loan to another person, have 2 witnesses with regard to it. Wow, what type of witnesses, when the witness, when you are traveling, how do you get a witness? Everything has been made mention in the Holy Quran. So Allah Ta'ala says, talabul halal. Now the aspect with regard to halal, and this halal has got tremendous amount of benefit. It's in the path of Allah. One day Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is sitting, and when he is sitting in a gathering, one young person who is busy doing some aspects with regard to halal risk comes running past the gathering. And he is now in a hurry to be able to do and to fulfill his needs, and he's doing some sort of endeavor for the sake of halal risk. So when he does this, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is sitting. One of the Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, look at this young person who is showing such enthusiasm, such amount of strength. If only those strength could have been used in the path of Allah for him to propagate Islam. Now Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam hears this, and then Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, what do you know what he is striving for? If he is striving to look after his aged parents, he is in the path of Allah. If he is striving and he is showing this enthusiasm and running around to look after his small children, he is in the path of Allah. And when if he is running around and striving to be able to fulfill his own needs and to be independent without him being dependent upon any other human being, he is in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanallah. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has made mention with regard to the acquiring of halal risk in such a way. And then of course we know that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had said, At-tajiru saduqul amin, that the honest trader will be with the anbiya, with the martyrs, and with the truthful people on the day of Qiyamah. The reason with regard to it also will make mention with regard to it also. So these are some of the aspects that we talk about halal risk. The benefit of it I will say. Now I will give you a few examples. In our history, there were also many great people who became known by the trade that they carry on, even if they were ulama, even if they were pious people. I just made a small, writing down some of our great people. Shamsul A'imma Sarakhsi wrote a massive commentary on the works of the fiqh of Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh. He was a halwai. They used to call him halwai. What he means, he used to sell sweet meats, what we call today, mitai. Imam Abu Ja'far, he was a person who used to sell kafan. He used to sell the cloth with regard to kafan. Allama Marwari was a qaffal, he was a locksmith. Right? Ghazali, Imam Ghazali rahmatullah alayhi, was the one who used to trade in cotton. Right? Then amongst the people, amongst the ulama, you find even amongst the transmitters of hadith, Ma'amar, who was a builder. Right? Khalal, the person who was, used to make vinegar. Warraq, a person who was a bookbinder. An-Najjar, a person who was a carpenter. And Quduri is one of the first books of fiqh that our ulama who study from the Hanafi fiqh, they do in the second year of the alim course. He was a person who used to be a builder of pots and used to sell pots. All of these are halal risk. Right? Trade, whether it be employment. Employment is also amongst those things that Allah in the Holy Quran has made mention of. Allah Ta'ala says Hazrat Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was employed by Shuaib alayhi salatu wasalam. And how he was employed today, you get a reference. So someone gives you a reference and you put your CV and you go for an interview. And Hazrat Musa alayhi salatu wasalam's reference was given by the daughter of Shuaib alayhi salatu wasalam, who told her father, "Oh my father, ista'jir." Employ Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. Inna khayra man ista'jarta al-qawiyyul amin. The best of people to employ are those who are strong, proficient and trustworthy. Today you look management books and you will say, how must you look for your employee? The one statement of a woman, the daughter of Shuaib alayhi salatu wasalam, has given you the overriding criteria to employ a person. He must be proficient in his task and he must be trustworthy. Subhanallah. If you want to employ someone, you employ for two things. Inna khayra man ista'jarta al-qawiyyul amin. So there is employment. Whether it be with regard to employment, Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam had said, a person's dignity is tied by him in getting halal risk. Yeah? And as I made mention with regard to today, you have to look after your wife. It's also in the path of Allah. Look after your children is path. Although sometimes it becomes, nowadays very difficult today, given that cost of living and demands. So they said one day a person's credit card got stolen. So when a credit card got stolen, he didn't report it. Someone said, why don't you report it to the police? He said, the thief is spending less than my wife. So one day a small child asked the father, my father, how much does it cost to get married? He said, oh my son, I don't know, I'm still paying. So this is part of, it's a religious obligation. You get rewarded with regard to it. Right? So now I'm talking about, different types of professions, being employed, being an employee of someone, then the aspect with regard to, business I made mention. Just to give you one more example with regard to halal trade, and then we go to the third lesson of the hadith. Let us remember the hadith, talabul halali faridatun ba'd al-farida. The acquiring of halal risk is a religious obligation. Right, that's the first part of the hadith. What lesson we learn from here? The first lesson, there is no dichotomy between the world and the akhirat and the spiritual and the mundane. The second aspect is not talabul mal, talabul halal. Now the benefit with regard to talabul halal. Comes in a hadith that Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had said, Allah Ta'ala commands the believers that which He commands the Anbiya. Allah commands the believers what He commands the Anbiya. Now the second citation which I read in my khutbah, which is in Surah Mu'minun in the 18th surah of the Holy Quran. Ya ayyuha rusul, O prophets, kulu min at-tayyibat, eat from the halal which we have provided, and wa'amalu salihah, and do righteous deeds. Now this is one of the benefits of halal risk. If you eat halal, and if your earnings are from halal which you purchase your needs, then you would be able to do righteous deeds. There is a correlation between halal risk and doing righteous deeds. And if your risk is not halal, it is haram. Either you eat it yourself, which is haram, either you eat pork or you eat that which has not been slaughtered in the name of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Allah says in the Quran, فَكُلُوا مِمَّا ذُكِرَ اسْمُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ إِن كُنْتُمْ بِآيَاتِهِ مُؤْمِنِينَ. Eat from that which is slaughtered in the name of Allah if you are a believer. And if you don't eat that, you will not be able to do righteous deeds, or you will find it extremely difficult to do righteous deeds. And many times you wonder and you ask, Ya Allah, why is it I find it so difficult to get up for salat? Why is it I want to do righteous deeds and I can't do it? then you start wondering, is this not the situation where Allah Ta'ala tells us, do right, eat halal and do righteous deeds. Eat halal and do righteous deeds. The converse is also true. If your food is not halal or your earning is not halal, you will find it extremely difficult to do righteous deeds. In this regard, you will find many of the Mufassirin, they write a very interesting incident. The incident of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahmatullah alayh. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahmatullah alayh was the student of Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayh. And we sometimes make such a big thing about the Imams and the differences. But amongst them, despite the fact they had a difference of opinion, they had respect. So Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh's student was Imam Muhammad. He was the teacher of Imam Shafi. Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi was the teacher of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahmatullah alayhi was almost last in the line of the four Imams of fiqh. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi was first, Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi was second, then Imam Shafi and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. So Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal one day expressed the desire and told his teacher Imam Shafi that I'm coming to visit you. So Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi used to speak very highly about his students Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal in front of his students and in front of his children. So the children and the daughters of Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi were waiting for Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. That, you know, our father speaks so highly about his student. Let us see, you know, that time of course people used to take the opinion of people according to their conduct and piety and not according to, you know, with which car they came or how wealthy they were. So they wanted to see, who is this Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal our father speaks so highly about? So he came, everything happened. In the next morning, or just when he went, or either just he was about to go, the daughters came to complain to Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi. You spoke so highly about your student and we didn't find him to be pious, or we didn't find him to be the way you have spoken about him. Why? What's the reason? He said, we tested him. We put water for him. That time there was no tap, so we put water for him to make wuzu at the time of tahajjud, right? And then of course we fed him, of course after Maghrib or whatever, he ate. So we saw three things. One was, he ate more than usual. Now, eating more than usual at that time was not regarded to be a sign of piety. I don't know how it is regarded to me now. Anyway, the second thing is that he did not use the water that we left for wuzu. That means he didn't make tahajjud. And we are worried that maybe he never made fajr namaz without wuzu. What is the situation? So at that time there was a time of, innocence. So Imam Shafi rahmatullah said, Imam Ahmad, you are my student, we always used to speak so highly about you, and my daughters have got this complaint about you. So Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahmatullah said an amazing thing. He said, I've always heard about the barakah of halal rizq, the barakah and blessings of eating halal pure food. And I realized that where would I get more pure food than in the dastarkhan and the tablecloth of my ustad Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi. So I ate more than what I normally ate. So that was the answer to one of the objections with the daughters had. He said the barakah of that halal food was such. The barakah of that halal food was such. After Isha, I started contemplating about some masail, some ideas that I wanted a Quran and Hadith resolution to those particular ideas that were in my mind. And the solutions just started coming into my mind one after the other. And he said, after Isha, when I started thinking, I deducted almost 100 masail from Quran and Hadith, which previously I never used to find the answer and solution to. And because I spent most of my night in contemplation of the Quran and Hadith, I was with wuzu the entire night. I made tahajjud and I made fajr with that same wuzu of Isha. The barakah of halal rizq. Kulu min at-tayyibat wa amalu salihah. Ulama, and this is also another important point that I would say, that many times you and I, we are living in an age we feel, is it possible to you to earn halal rizq in today's time? Is it possible for you to be honest in a time when dishonesty has become so much in vogue? How many times people tell you today, you can't do business in today's time. You have to give bribe, otherwise nothing happens. How many times you hear that? If you don't give bribe, you don't get tenders. If you don't speak lies, you don't get tenders. Right? Now sometimes you ask yourself the question, is it possible? Yes, it is possible. You have to go against your nafs and go according to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In that you will find barakah. You might find less, but you will find barakah. One day a person, Asad bin Abi Waqqas radiallahu anhu, came to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ud'u Allah ta'ala an yaj'alani mustajab ad-da'wat. Ya Rasulullah, make dua that Allah ta'ala make me a person who Allah accepts all of my duas. You know what Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told him? Ya Sa'd, atib mat'amaka takun mustajab ad-da'wat. Oh Sa'd, eat halal, Allah will accept all your duas. Oh Sa'd, eat halal, make your rizq halal, Allah will accept all your duas. Right. Now let us look at the other way. If you eat haram, now haram can be different ways. Your earning can be haram, you can eat haram, you can earn through the means of interest, you can earn through the means of, deception. Yesterday someone sent a hadith, I think it was this morning there, that a person one day was selling something wheat in the bazaars of Medina. Right, and he had piled up the wheat. And when he had piled up the wheat, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam passed by. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam perceived something, came past, put his hand under the wheat, found that the bottom of the wheat was damp. It was not the same quality that was on the top of the wheat. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, why do you do this? You are selling people this, but yet the one that is on the bottom is not of the same quality that is on top. He said, Ya Rasulullah, I was trying to hide. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Laysa minna man ghashana. He is not from amongst us who deceives people. He is not from amongst us. He is not amongst the part of the ummah. So you can deceive, you can eat from interest. Brothers, what do I say with regard to interest when Allah in the Holy Quran says, he who takes interest declares war against Allah and His Rasul. You can't say more than that. What more can you say with regard to the hurmat and the prohibition and the seriousness of that? Right? So, and then Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, لا يدخل الجنة لحم نبت من السحت. كل لحم نبت من السحت فالنار أولى به. That particular meat which is nourished for haram will never go to Jannah. Every meat and part of your body that is nourished by haram, Jahannam is more worthy of that flesh. So talabul halali, firstly, there is no dichotomy. Second thing is talabul halali. And then the last thing, faridatun ba'd al-farida. Subhanallah, what a beautiful way Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It is a religious obligation. There is no doubt it is a religious obligation. But after the primary religious obligations, subhanallah, what a beautiful way of putting it. So many times you and I, we say, I'm doing business, but this is Allah Ta'ala told me to do it. Allah Ta'ala told me, yes, Allah Ta'ala told me, then why don't you go for salat? But Allah Ta'ala said I must do business. But Allah Ta'ala said you must do business after farida. After your religious obligation like salat, zakat, saum, etc. It's there. It's not that it is not there, but it is after farida, after the primary religious obligation. It is made, where is the priority? It is a religious obligation, but after the primary religious obligation. لا تلهكم أموالكم ولا أولادكم عن ذكر الله. Do not allow your wealth and your children to divert you from Allah's remembrance. That is a primary religious obligation. So you see that therefore Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَجْمِلُوا فِي الطَّلَبِ. Fear Allah and be moderate in the acquisition of your risk. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَجْمِلُوا فِي الطَّلَبِ. Fear Allah and be moderate in acquiring wealth. And part of that hadith is what most of our khutbah, they read in the khutbah of Jummah. Because Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam goes on in that hadith to say, أَلَا وَإِنَّ نَفْسًا لَن تَمُوتْ حَتَّى تَسْتَكْمِلَ رِزْقَهَا. None of you will die until he completes his risk which Allah has allotted to him. Fattaqullah. I'm sure many of you might have heard this in many of the hadiths make mention in Jummah khutbah. Allah, no one will die until he complete his risk Allah has allotted for him. You won't die until what Allah has allotted to you, you finish it up. That will never die. Fattaqullah, fear Allah and me. So now look at the hadith and let us conclude with it. Talabul halali faridatun ba'd al-farida. The acquiring of halal is a religious obligation after primary religious obligation. 3 lessons out of many other lessons you can take from the hadith. I have just concentrated on 3. That there is no dichotomy in Islam between the world and the akhirat, between the spiritual and the mundane. So Allah has made it such that even your earning of halal risk is a religious obligation. It is part of deen. Not only part of deen, I made mention with regard to it that it is, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam declared it to be part of Allah, going out in the path of Allah. It is greatly rewarded. I gave you examples of that. And not talabul mal. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam didn't say acquiring of wealth. Not every means of earning wealth is a religious obligation. Talabul halal. And what is halal? Allah and His Rasul will determine, not you and I will determine. We can't be a referee and a player. And then the third thing is, after the primary religious obligation is its importance. So I think maybe, because you got that hadith, You got 3 lessons, it might be easier for you to take home. Take home package, a takeaway. As it is Saturday night is always a takeaway package. So we'll do a takeaway package, these 3 things. May Allah give you a tawfiq of understanding. I don't know if there's anything that maybe people would like to ask. We can leave it open, otherwise inshallah we will conclude.